On today's Locked On Giants podcast, National Scout Rick Serritella of NFL Draft Bible joins me with a deep dive into who helped and who hurt their draft stock. That's coming your way next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the promo code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. My name is Patricia Traina, P-Train, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for Giants Country over on the Fan Nation Network. And a special welcome on in to my Blue Crew community members, my everydayers, my newcomers, and everybody in between. You are all appreciated and loved by yours truly. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day, or if you watch on YouTube, your first watch of the day. And we are continuing our look at the Combine, which is now concluded. So we're getting some feedback from the experts who scout for a living, who know this stuff inside out. And I'm happy to welcome on in a very good friend of mine, longtime friend of mine, who is also a scout. He's with All Access Football. He is Rick Serritella. Rick, so glad to have you on the podcast today.
Oh, so happy to be back, Patricia. You know, keeping it locked on the Giants. This is like our annual tradition now. I don't know how many years it's been, but always a pleasure.
Yes, definitely. Glad to see you looking well. Rick, let's jump right in because there's a lot to talk about regarding the Giants. I think we have to start with the quarterback situation. Joe Schoen has basically said the expectation is for Daniel Jones to be the starter once he's healthy. I've got to start there. How much are you buying that?
Well, you know, I think that the NFL is a bottom line business. And I think Joe Schoen has looked at the bottom line and seen the results. So whether you're going to lean on the performance or lean on the durability, I don't think Joe Schoen feels comfortable at night when he goes to bed in terms of the quarterback position.
Yeah. And in terms of, you know, this quarterback class, it's widely regarded as a deep class. Schoen has said that, you know, you can find probably talent on day two and beyond, even if you really look. But what's your feeling after the Combine? Do you feel like guys moved up? You know, I'm thinking in terms of J.J. McCarthy, for example. You know, there's been some talk about him maybe entering the top 10 rank, if you will, along with Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams. So how do you kind of see that post-Combine quarterback look?
Well, I see it a little bit differently. I actually think that, you know, there's this big groupthink box in terms of the scouting community, especially on the mainstream media. So like everybody has the pecking order: Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, and then J.J. McCarthy. Yet we fail to see what our eyes are telling us, that Michael Penix was the best thrower in Indianapolis, defeated Bo Nix twice. In terms of deep ball throwing accuracy and big playability, Michael Penix is as good as it comes. So to me, I think Michael Penix is the best quarterback after Caleb Williams. Is that how the NFL draft order is going to play out? I don't know. I think these quarterbacks are very evenly ranked right now, and I think it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a pocket passer who can make all the throws, Michael Penix is that dude. If you're looking for a more dual threat kind of athletic signal caller, Jaden Daniels is that guy, right? But, you know, when I look at the Giants, and in fact, when I look at the top 10, top 5, I believe the Giants kind of hold the keys. They might be the first domino that falls, right? Because I think the Bears are going to stay put and take Caleb Williams. Then it becomes, what do the Commanders do? What do the Patriots do at 2 and 3? I think that depends on the type of draft equity they can acquire. And when you look at what the Giants have right now, I believe 37, 47, and 70, in addition to number 6. Well, if I was the Giants, who desperately want one of these quarterbacks, from my understanding, you could parlay maybe 37 and 70, throw in a future first round pick, 25, maybe 26, and then suddenly you're making an offer that's too good to refuse. And you could state a case, if I'm an evaluator of football, that I have a better chance of winning with a Jaden Daniels than a Daniel Jones. I think you can make that argument. And I do think that if they don't make a move at quarterback, they're going to be stuck in quicksand and sinking their job security along with Daniel Jones.
Rick, how far away from being NFL ready are these quarterbacks? I mean, everybody, they come in, they've got some things they've got to adjust to, besides obviously learning the terminology, getting used to the receivers and whatnot. But in terms of, any deficiencies, whether it be footwork or throwing mechanics or whatnot, how far away are the top quarterbacks, do you think, from being NFL ready?
That's such a great question, Patricia, because I think the NFL has evolved from that kind of mind frame. And back in the day, when you had a system and you tried to fit that quarterback into your system, you needed him to be pro ready. I think today, with the kind of proliferation of the college offense into the NFL schematics, you now have to have a coaching staff. And this is one of Brian Daboll's strong points, where you can adapt and adjust to your quarterback and build an offense around him. We saw it last year in Houston with CJ Stroud. We've seen it with Anthony Richardson before he got hurt, right? We've seen Kyle Shanahan kind of cater an offense around a quarterback that has limitations, but has learned how to maximize his skill set. And so I think when you take a guy like Drake May, who started for 3 seasons, or Jaden Daniels, who's 26 years old, played 6 years of college football, these guys have seen a lot of live bullets. Right. So it's the coaching staff's job to kind of bend, if you will, to the skill set and put them in a situation to succeed and surround them with weapons at their disposal. And I think that's more of the mind frame now, because the NFL offenses have been simplified over the last 5, 6, 7 years. The quarterbacks now can come into the league. I don't know if they're more prepared than ever. I just think the transition is a little bit easier than what it used to be.
Makes sense. Now, the Giants, you mentioned that they desperately want one of these quarterbacks. Given the other needs that they have, and obviously we're talking before free agency, they're expected to make some moves to fill some of the holes that they have in free agency. But is it really worth it to them to trade up for a guy that may end up sitting for a little bit, as opposed to maybe getting a number one receiver, which they haven't had since 2018 with Odell, and making, potentially giving that young quarterback, if they do get one in, say, the second round, giving that kid an advantage of sorts?
Well, I mean, if you're a believer in Daniel Jones, then by all means, go and get that man a weapon. But the quarterback position still remains the most vital position in the NFL. If you look at the common denominator in terms of successful teams, it comes down to quarterback play. And the Giants are invested $40 million plus per season in Daniel Jones after he came off a season in which he won a playoff game. So I think right now it's safe to say the Giants did not receive and do not look like they are going to get a return on investment with that contract investment, because the goal was to advance, beyond what they already accomplished. And instead they went backwards, throwing the durability issues. And oh, by the way, we forget Daniel Jones did not look like a $40 million signal caller before he got injured. So it depends on, your perspective on Daniel Jones. I've taken a lot of heat and criticism over my view on Daniel Jones. And, here we are, almost 5 years later, and we're still wondering if he's the guy. I mean, I got news for you guys. If you're still not sure, chances are he's not the guy.
So that said, Rick, I mean, if you were to stack up the best fits for the Giants at quarterback, and I know, obviously Caleb Williams is probably going to go to the Bears and whatnot, so he's probably not even in consideration. But if you could stack these up, day 1, day 2 prospects, what would be your order for the Giants at quarterback?
Well, again, I prefer Michael Penix as the number 2 quarterback. I think I'm in the minority based on the feedback that I've gathered. So I would say like Drake May probably right now who views Eli Manning as a mentor, ironically enough, spends a lot of time with Eli Manning. Very confident young man. I struggle with the consistencies there. I struggle with the poor performance against top 25 caliber competition. It's a little bit of a roller coaster ride with Drake May's film. Yeah, there's flashes there where he looks the part. There's also some throws that, seem like they should be easy and he fails to connect. So I do think, he's probably the most logical choice. Although Jaden Daniels, I think, has the larger upside. I like to reel in some of the wildness in terms of his running ability, because he's out there like a wild deer in headlights, and he's going to get killed in the NFL level with some of the hits that I anticipate him taking if he doesn't kind of harness that excitement. So I think that right now May would be the guy. Daniels would probably be after that. And JJ McCarthy has all the leadership intangibles. I think it's a little rich to go up there and trade up for a quarterback like that. Maybe if they stand pat, okay. And I don't think I answered your previous question about getting a weapon, though. Like, a wide receiver is very, very deep. We saw it. This may be the best wide receiver and offensive tackle class that we've ever seen in history. I mean, in terms of just measurables, unbelievable size, speed, athleticism. So, if they don't go quarterback, they do need a playmaker. They do need an offensive tackle, which it feels like they've needed a tackle for the past decade. But those would be two positions that, if they don't go quarterback, you could probably go maybe Marvin Harrison, maybe still on the board. And you could still come back and get a starting caliber tackle. So to answer that previous question, like, if you want to move forward with Daniel Jones and you plug in Marvin Harrison at 6, and say you come back in the second round and you get a guy like Jordan Morgan out of Arizona, or a Tyler Guyton, or maybe an Amarius Mims who slides due to medical. I mean, it's a path that I can understand the logic. It's just not a path that I'm a believer in.
Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscriptions fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. Hey, Giant fans, if you're looking to bet on the excitement of sports, check out FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. You can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. FanDuel also offers a wide variety of bets, and not just on the NBA. You can bet on the NHL, MLB, futures, and so much more. So head on over to FanDuel.com/lockedon today and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Rick, you mentioned that, this is a very deep wide receiver class. And, everybody talks about Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, but give me some names that might make sense on day 2 that you think could develop into a #1 receiver.
Yeah, I mean, Malik Neighbors did not work out in Indianapolis, but his teammate Brian Thomas Jr. did. And I'll tell you what, if it wasn't for Xavier Worthy and his 4.21 40, everybody would probably be talking about Brian Thomas. I mean, he came in at 6'3", 209 pounds, and ran a 4.33 40 with a 1.5 10-yard split, which is amazing. Oh, by the way, he added a 30-inch vertical, 11-foot broad jump. I mean, these are like Olympian type of numbers. And he might still be on the board when the Giants come back around in the second round, because we mentioned the depth. You mentioned Harrison, Odunze, Neighbors, Worthy. Not all these guys can go in the first round. Maybe they can. I don't know, but everybody's saying that there might be 6 to 8 offensive tackles. People are saying there might be 5 to 6 quarterbacks. So how many of these wide receivers are actually going to sneak into the first round? If they do plug an offensive tackle, say a Joe Alt or Olu Fashanu, and say, hey, let's take the best available weapon that slides to us. Well, how about a Troy Franklin out of Oregon? He's big, he's fast, he can play the boundary on the outside. Johnny Wilson out of Florida State is another guy that would fit that category. Xavier Leggett, who I thought quieted the critics down in Mobile in terms of can he run the route tree. He kind of showed some versatility to his game, and he's another one of these big-bodied, fast receivers like A.J. Brown comparison. Xavier Leggett, he's going to go on day 2, and the list goes on and on. Like Ladd McConkey, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to the Chiefs at 32, or if he slides to the third round, because most people are probably viewing him as a slot or a gadget guy, and he might not be a starting receiver, but in terms of production, this is a major weapon to have in the arsenal on the offensive side of the ball. And I'll tell you a couple more guys, because the Giants are in the market. Roman Wilson out of Michigan, I thought showed some of the best separation ability at the Senior Bowl, and you saw that change of direction ability at the Combine. And then Brendan Rice, like, how cool was it? Like Jerry Rice just hanging around at the Combine because his son was there, and some pretty cool moments just seeing Jerry Rice out and about. So lot of good talent in this wide receiver position. And there will be some players taken on round 2 and round 3 that outplay some of their counterparts. And those are just a couple of guys. Ricky Pearsall from Florida, I thought, improved his draft stock. I mean, as much as anybody out there.
Interesting. Now, what are some of the position groups that maybe aren't as strong this year in the draft?
Well, I would say defensive tackle, it comes to mind. Like, I don't know if we're going to see a defensive tackle there in the first round. I do believe Johnny Newton out of Illinois was that guy, and now he had a Jones fracture at the Combine, so he did not work out. He is expected to be ready for his pro day. I don't think it's serious. Is it serious enough where he slides out of the first round? Possibly. Byron Murphy II out of Texas, incredible athletic specimen. Maybe he sneaks into the first round. So I would say defensive tackle maybe is lacking the star power up top. And then, I feel like the linebackers and safeties get a bad rap in this year's draft, but I just think that they've kind of been devalued in recent years, especially the linebacker position. I don't think we had an off-ball linebacker in the first round last year, and I think that trend continues this year. I really like this kid out of North Carolina State, Peyton Wilson, who I think probably the best bang for your buck in terms of pound-for-pound talent. Unfortunately, there's some medical there, right? That's kind of the element that we don't really know about until they get called back for that medical recheck, how that can impact a draft stock on the guy like a Peyton Wilson. But Junior Colson out of Michigan, like I would never doubt this man. He lost his entire family essentially to an earthquake in Haiti and moved to the States, and really just was homeless for a period of time, I believe, and just an incredible backstory. But when you want to bet on a guy, Junior Colson out of Michigan is a guy that I think really comes to mind. But probably linebacker and safeties. Like, I don't know. I think the NFL might be a little bit scared to take these safeties like Cam Kinchins. It's unbelievable, right? we talk about bigger, stronger, faster, Patricia. We've gotten to the point in time where a guy like Cam Kinchins, okay, bunch of interceptions, 8 or 9 career interceptions, bunch of pick 6 interception returns, just a playmaker, right? Well, he runs a 4.65 at the combine, and now we're saying he's too slow. So he went from maybe a first round lock to somebody who now may slide out of the first round. But wow, don't make that mistake. Remember Kyle Phillips, right? He got downgraded because he ran a 4.7 140. How'd that work out for the Ravens? Okay, so Cam Kinchins, Tyler Nubin coming off injury out of Minnesota. These two guys are first round talents. They're going to go on day 2. So I guess beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Rick, I wanted to ask you about Saquon because that's a very hot topic ahead of free agency. Do the Giants make an offer to keep him? Do they let him walk? Can they still get something for him? And how do they replace him if he does walk? So let's start with, his value to the team. He's was, despite missing, I think it was 3 games last year, he was their most productive player. What do you do if you're Joe Shane with Saquon?
Well, again, it's a dollars and cents issue, right? And unfortunately, even though Saquon Barkley is the most valuable player on the New York Football Giants, the reality says that when you have a $40 million starting quarterback, it's near impossible to build a competitive roster when you also pay your running back $20 million. And I understand the salary cap went up, right? But that's still, think about it. What percentage? I know you're the captologist, Patricia. That's a big percentage of salary to be paying 2 guys on a 53-man roster. So I just think that when you look at the draft and you see a guy like Trey Benson at 6 foot, 215 pounds and runs a 4.39, well, hey, you're not going to replace Saquon Barkley with one guy. But in terms of just an every down back who can push the pile, move the chains, and be reliable, well, hey, I can go get a cost-effective running back in the 2nd, 3rd, maybe even the 4th round, like Braylon Allen, Jersey guy from Wisconsin, 6'1", 235 pounds. Now, he didn't run in Indianapolis, but this is a guy that makes defenders make business decisions. You do not want, this is like a Jerome Bettis type of running back. And Marshawn Lloyd out of USC, like Jalen Wright out of Tennessee, these guys are going to be on the board in the 3rd or 4th round. These are starting caliber running backs. And I don't know what the salary is offhand of a 3rd or 4th round running back, but if I can find a guy that can start, and you got the kid, who is it, Eric Gray, who didn't really play a lot, but he's been stashed there, on the practice squad, who's a Saquon Barkley light. Well, why can't you just piecemeal this running back like so many other organizations around the league have? And if you look at NFL history, who are the running backs that have essentially put their team or their franchise on the back and led them to a Super Bowl? Who are they? Larry Zonka, Emmitt Smith? Where have they been since then? I can't find any, Patricia. So to pay Saquon Barkley, as much as I love the guy, to pay him near $20 million a year just doesn't make any sense.
Could you see a tag and trade for him?
I think the market dictates. Christian McCaffrey, I think, is making $16 million per year, and the franchise tag, I believe,
11.9, I think it is.
11.9.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that number is going to lead to a holdout. No, is that something that Saquon Barkley's signing up for? I don't. I guess it would have to lead to a contract extension after that deal is made. But again, like you saw it with the Raiders running back Josh Jacobs, you saw it with Austin Eckler. The teams didn't want to pay the money. And that's why, they're going to be hitting the open market as well.
Hey, Giant fans, if you're having trouble finding those last-minute tickets to your favorite concerts, shows, and sporting events, Game Time has you covered. They offer a wide selection of seats, complete with seat views to help you decide where to sit, and they're constantly offering last-minute tickets through flash deals. There are no hidden fees. You'll know exactly what your deal is before you check out. And with Game Time, they even have tickets available as late as an hour after an event starts, making it truly the best place to find last-minute deals at amazing prices. Want more reasons to trust Game Time? They offer event cancellation protection. And if you find tickets in the same section and row for less elsewhere, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So go on and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Terms apply. Hey, Giant fans, passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay's guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers. Rick, what about its safety? The Giants also have a decision to make with Xavier McKinney, who is only 24 years old. He doesn't have a Pro Bowl to his name. He's had some injury issues, but he played well in the second half of last year, set new career highs and whatnot. I mean, what would you do with him if you're the Giants?
Well, I've always been a big believer of developing, in-house, right? Like you want to take those guys and hope that your coaching over the course of time develops into, the fruits of your labor, so to speak. And so I think he's shown enough flashes where you want to try to retain his services. I don't know what the asking price is going to be there. But if there's a way to make it work, I mean, that's a guy that I would want to keep in-house, right? And there's been a lot of transition in that secondary. So having some kind of continuity or stability in there. And, at this point, he's probably, I would guess, a back-end leader in terms of experience. So, I think you try to keep a guy like that. But we mentioned like some of the value is going to be in the middle rounds of the draft at the safety position. Like Cole Bishop, we didn't mention him at 6'2", ran a 4.45 with a 39-inch vertical. This guy is basically, when you talk about that hybrid safety linebacker rover kind of position, Cole Bishop kind of fits that. You've got Jalen Simpson, kind of a freelance roaming playmaking safety, ball hawk, had some interceptions this past year, is a speedier guy. So Sion Vaki out of Utah, may be able to fit two needs, right? Because here's a guy, he dazzled me at the Senior Bowl. He kind of won me over with his ability to play safety and running back. I mean, he's somewhat of a unicorn. So Vaki on day 3, like, let's take Vaki out of Utah. We'll throw him in the backfield as a change of pace guy. And oh, by the way, he can come in and play some safety for us and special teams. Like, that's the kind of guy that the Giants should be and could be targeting in the draft.
Yeah, the value picks are very important as well. Rick, one position we haven't really talked about, and I've been screaming about this as being a need now for a long time, besides offensive line, of course, is edge rusher. How does the edge rusher class look?
Yeah, I thought the edge rusher class as a whole kind of took an uptick after the combine. I mean, again, unheard of. Like these times and numbers that we're seeing. Dallas Turner, 4.44, I believe. Chop Robinson out of Penn State, 4.48. at 254 pounds. Jared Verse from Florida State, 4'5'8". I mean, I've never seen guys this big that can scoot like this. So in terms of like the athleticism, holy gosh, like if you can't figure out how to use these guys, let's go figure it out. But yeah, I think the problem is like at 6, it's probably a little bit too rich for these guys, because I think the blue chip prospects are the positions we talked about: quarterback, wide receiver, offensive tackle. In fact, I look at the top 10 outside of Atlanta at 8. I have a hard time finding a spot where a defensive player could land. So I think the Giants, where they currently sit, are probably too high to take an edge rusher. And coming back on the second round, they're probably going to be too late to get anybody worthwhile, because there's really not a lot of them. And I think once the first domino falls, they'll come off the board with Flory. But Dallas Turner out of Alabama, I think, is one. A lot of people like Latu out of UCLA, who actually medically retired due to a neck injury during his time at Washington. Apparently, he checked out okay medically at the combine. My issues really are more with his play strength. I thought at the Senior Bowl he kind of struggled with that a little bit. But Jared Verse out of Florida State, really, really good-looking player. A transfer from Albany, the Great Danes, FCS to FBS, has done it at both levels. I think if you're talking about a traditional hand in the dirt 43 type of defensive end, Jared Verse and Chop Robinson out of Penn State. But, Dallas Turner, there's a couple hybrid guys like Edgerrin Cooper and Chris Braswell. Cooper out of A&M, Braswell out of Alabama. I think most people prefer them as off-ball linebackers. I kind of like them as edge rusher. I like Cooper as a pass rusher, and I don't know if too many people view him in that manner, but I think when you take a look at his traits and skill set, I think he can do it. And then the wild card, there's probably 2 of them. One of them, Jonah Ellis out of Utah. His father played in the league. I think he led the nation in sacks. And then Muhammad Kamara out of Colorado State. His draft grades are all over the board. He's got these really short arms, which usually don't survive in the league. But, man, when you talk about the get-off, the explosion, the speed, the quickness, the production, somebody's going to take a flyer on this guy somewhere in the middle rounds. Muhammad Kamara. Remember that name, probably the wild card of the pass rushing gang.
It's interesting. I just did a mock draft for Giants Country, and I had Ellis landing, I think it was as a day 3. I think I had as an early day 3 pick. Because they do need edge rushers. Now, Rick, final question for you. You look at all the needs that the Giants have, which, you can make an argument across the board they have needs.
Yeah.
Is there an advantage, do you think, to hitting the ground running at certain positions with veterans? So in other words, instead of rolling the dice on a rookie, bring in veterans to jumpstart that group, and then maybe get day 3 rookies that you can develop for down the line. And I'm thinking like in terms of maybe offensive line as being one where they absolutely have to hit the ground running. I mean, so an example like that.
Yeah, I always thought the NFL offseason process was backwards, because I feel like the draft should be first, and then you should have free agency to kind of fill in the rest of your needs. But we do it free agency first, so teams ultimately tend to overpay for their needs, right? And I'm a big advocate of building through the draft. I think best available player over need. I think when you start drafting for need is how you get burnt. Mm-hmm. And with free agency, I tend to shy away from splurging. You got the money, you got to spend it on somebody, right? So I understand. Preferably, I'm of a philosophy belief of like Xavier McKinney. Draft, develop, use that money that you have to keep those guys in-house, right? Hopefully you hit more than you miss on your draft picks, and you can develop those guys. But that's how I like to construct a roster. Now, to your point, there are positions like wide receiver. I don't care how many guys you draft, you're not filling that need. Right. So it might make sense. Like if you're going to lean on some younger players, Jalen Hyatt, like have the Giants actually figured out how to use that young man yet? Well, maybe a veteran guy on the open market. I'm not really savvy with the current list of names there. So Mike Evans just came off the market, but a guy like that to kind of show you the ropes, how a pro works, what you need to do, I think could be very beneficial. So I guess wide receiver would be the one. And then offensive line, like, enough of the turnstile revolving rookies that have come and flopped and failed through the draft. Like, obviously they need some reinforcements. Why not go get a proven commodity? They need to fix the offensive line if they want to have any kind of success. So again, like, you're not going to solve all those problems in the draft. That's probably where I would explore to maybe add some veterans. I hear there might be a good one available down there coming out of Dallas.
All right, Rick, I appreciate all the intel. Always great catching up with you. He is Rick Serritella of All Access Football. He does a great job scouting. He's all over the place looking at prospects and whatnot. So do look him up on the internet. Follow him on Twitter for his observations. And Giant fans, thank you as always for tuning in to the Locked On Giants podcast. We appreciate you. And we will see you again tomorrow with an all-new episode of Locked On Giants.